Hey everyone, welcome back to another season review for 2020 at Blue Abroad here. And today we'll be looking at Michael Gibbons, the number 40 in the Navy Blue in his 2020 season. And look, he came from a VFL last year, and his first season, I think he surprised a few in terms of what he actually brought to the club. But there were no surprises in year two. We knew what we were going to get from Gibbons. I don't think the football world knew what he was capable of, and I say this with Gibbo playing as a small forward. And, Pom has talked about it so often, and Terry have talked about it so often. He was a JJ Liston medal winner as a midfielder in the VFL. So it is frustrating to see him as a small forward. I understand it. He does ply his trade pretty well up there. He does jag a few goals every time he does spend the majority of his time there. But undoubtedly, since day one that he came to the Blues, he has played his best football as a midfielder, and he's been influential as a midfielder. So we're not just talking about his individual stats and where he's better suited. He actually influences the game in the midfield, and we saw that a couple of times this year. So I might start with him as a small forward. Against the Gold Coast, he played a hybrid role. He racked up 19 touches, but he kicked a couple of goals, and he started forward. I think he kicked the opener, kicked another one in the second or third quarter, and just showed that he can apply his trade as a small forward. He also did it, I think it was against Port Adelaide or against North. It may have been against North, where he kicked a couple of goals. So as a small forward, we know what we're getting. He can pop up for a goal or two, but he's not going to be that mercurial Eddie Betts, even Zach Fisher type, which is what Fish showed us this year. For me, look at his game against Essendon, where he racked up 25 disposals playing on a wing. 20 of them were uncontested possessions from memory. And he just has a knack of finding the ball on the outside of the contest. And Tez and Pom in their 2021 preseason preview show late last week, they spoke about how he could potentially be a Mark Murphy replacement in a couple of years, and I absolutely agree with that. I think if you go back and you can't really find too many highlights of him in the VFL, but if you can find some highlights packages, have a look at where he did his best work, and then go have a look at that Essendon game and tell me the differences, because I can't see too many. For me, and it stems all the way back to the Bulldogs game in 2019. The first Bulldogs game, he kicked his first goal in that game, I'm pretty sure, but he had 20 plus touches that day playing as a midfielder, and he was highly influential in terms of score involvements, inside 50s, and all of those stat categories that matter as a midfielder. And even this year, so the AFL, they compare him as a forward, and he's elite in inside 50s, in goal assists, in all of those things that you want from an outside midfielder, because he's stacked up against forwards. But if he's elite in those categories as a forward, imagine what he could do with 60 to 70% midfield time and less time as a small forward. So, look, if we're looking at 2020, I think he was brilliant again. I think he's a player that came to the club for nothing, and I was stoked when we picked this guy up, because he probably should have been picked up a year or two earlier with what he was doing at VFL level. And I think he's shown now that he can be a consistent best 22 player for Carlton going forward, regardless of the acquisitions that we're bringing in. I think he walks into our 22. The player that he's up against is a Mark Murphy. And if Murphy's going to be gifted games next year, Gibbo might struggle to get a game week in, week out if the team is fit. But for me, he's more influential. He has more impact on a game than what Murphy does if he plays in that midfield role. So let me know what you think of his 2020 season. I was stoked that Gibbo just followed on from year one. And in 2021, I am really, really looking forward to hopefully seeing him play more midfield time, because I just think he adds so much more depth to that midfield core. You've got David Cunningham that can run through there. You've got Gibbo, you've got Murph, you've got Setterfield, and Setters can play inside and out. But for me, in that crop of outside midfielders, Gibbo just has to be there next year in the midfield. And like Terry and Pom said, in Carlton Media's 2021 previews, and in the interviews that we've been seeing, the press conferences, he hasn't been mentioned as a forward. So maybe we are going to get that in 2021. Who knows? So I was stoked with 2020. Let's see what we get in 2021. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Send me messages, whatever you want to do. And as always, go Blues.